Hey guys, it's Karen Marchetti. This time on Dual Process, Jody Robinson and I have a couple ideas for you. Both of us have a more simple design as well as a more complex design. So that's 4 total for this episode, just like always. Anyway, this time we're working on flowers applique, just a real simple quilt with some really big applique flowers. So grab your printable, let's get started. Hey guys, it's Karen. So for my more simple design, I'm it's more like an all over background fill, and we're just going to sneak in and quilt the appliques as we get to them. So I'm going to just assume that this is my quiltable area. Let me make my pen a little skinnier, otherwise we're going to run into issues. So I'm going to pretend, I can get 1 row in when I quilt. So I'm just going to start here, put in a curl, and I'm just going to make some random curls and leaves. And I'll put a little one there, and I'll sneak into the flower. I'm going to just, if you need to mark it, you can mark it. I'm just going to kind of aim for the center. And I'm just going to do a real soft arc there, and then stitch a loop. Soft arc up, stitch a big loop. So that kind of pulls the edges of that petal so it's not popping up. And then back out, and we'll do some more leaves, some more swirls, and the swirls and leaves are really forgiving. Just add some more as we go. Let me put another leaf there. I'll just stitch across these 2 blocks. I don't care that the seam is here, that doesn't bother me. I'm going to treat it as one big background. Come out of this one. Put a curl there, another leaf, little curl, bigger curl. And again, we're going to sneak in here, aim for that center point. If you need to mark it, you can mark it. I kind of like when it's kind of not askew, but not perfect, because my stitching is in no way perfect. So as long as I'm kind of near center, I'm okay. It's not something I'm going to go crazy worrying about. And again, just out to those points and back out. Some more curls, some more leaves, just filling that space up. And I don't think too much about, oh, should I put a leaf here? Because then I'll start to make a pattern, and I just want it really random. So now I'm stuck. All I have to do is just kind of backtrack down till I get out of that curl. So another thing, this area right here, I don't want to stay above that line. I want to kind of go up and down over that line. If I stay on one side, then when I do the roll, it's going to look very, very linear, and I don't want that. So what I'll do is I'll take a couple curls like that and go over that seam line. Whoops. And not every single one, but that way when I'm going to draw down here, if I went straight across and then I come back straight across, you'll see that gap, okay? But if I kind of do it like this, coming this way, and then when I go back, I do that same thing, and I alternate the designs. It's more like camouflage for your eye, because your eye's going to follow that straight line. So if it goes up and down, it's a little easier to hide that you cut through there. And I hope that makes sense. Sometimes I speak my own strange language, but hopefully you understood what I meant. Again, just filling this real random with the leaves. And I'll come back up to where I started. And thankfully I quilt much better than I draw on a digital whiteboard because it's super slippery. Okay, so now I would tie off and I will advance the quilt to this last row. And I'm just going to repeat that same process as we fill these blocks in, and just hit the appliques as we get to them. Okay, so you see that really went fast, and this is kind of like a go-to in my little quilt stitch library. I do this a lot. Anything with curls, swirls, leaves, loops, they all flow across the quilt fairly quickly. And we've done enough stitching in this flower. If you wanted to, take it up a notch, you could ditch all the way around this, but that wouldn't make it fast. And it wouldn't make it easy, but you can do that. And you can even do it without a start and stop. Just when you come to here, just go ahead and go around the edge of your applique. So I hope you give this a try, and I'll see you back here in a few minutes.
Hi everyone, it's Jody. For my simple quilting plan for the flower applique wall hanging, I've decided to go with leaves, and you can see by looking at what I've marked, which are these free motion kind of spines. I'm never actually going to stitch these spines. But I would have this marked before I loaded the quilt probably. It's just going to be easier to mark it before loading the quilt. And so I would mark these. These are going to be just wavy free motion kind of leaf vines, I guess, that are going to fill the entire background. And I'm also going to use those to travel to get to each flower to do the inside of the flower. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start obviously right up here at the top, and what we're going to do is add in these kind of ferny leaves, and I'm going to do both sides at once. So that is how I'm going to end up stitching these marked spines. So I'm just going to kind of make sure I fill in everything because this is the background. And because I'm coming back down in with to the spine, it actually ends up stitching that spine for me. So I do want to make a point though. So at this point, I'm going to come up here and go all the way in. And at that point, I'm just going to sneak in here to the flower so that I can quilt the flower itself. And what I'm going to do is a spiral. So I'm going to spiral in and back out for my center. And then I'm just going to travel around this. And I'm actually going to do kind of just like an echo in here. And again and again. And then I'm just going to do that as I travel around each flower petal. And what's going to happen is it's going to land me right back where I started, so I can sneak back out and continue right along with my leaves, filling all of the background space. Now, when I come to the edge of the quilt, because the spine disappears, that's okay. I'm just going to travel along the edge as if it were there, and then it picks back up with that spine, the next marked spine. Now just keep going. I'm going to make sure that I put some of these kind of way down in here because I do need to fill these areas between the flowers as well. So I'll put one little one. And again, I'll come in here so that I can do the center, that big spiral, back to where I started, and then do these echoes bouncing back, almost like a paisley. And then continue right along that path, filling in, pick back up with this spine, and just keep moving. Again, when I come to the edge of the quilt, I can just travel along that edge to keep going. And I'll stop right about there, and then I sneak down to this spine. I'm assuming, being a wall hanging, that I'm going to be able to reach at least to the center of the second row. And I'm just going to keep going along with my leaves. Ooh, kind of getting a little messy here. Make sure I go up in there to kind of interlock with that and make sure it gets totally filled. And I kind of forgot, so that's okay because I can backtrack right along there. I love leaves because they're so easy to make kind of be, you know, any shape and size you need to fill an area. Now, when I get to this point, I could tie off, but what I'm actually going to do is just do another leaf. Then I'm going to go like I'm doing another leaf and get to here. And I'm just going to continue with leaves. No sense tying off, and then I can travel down here. Fill in the rest of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie off because at this point I now need to advance the quilt. And then I'm just going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to work my way across, doing the leaves and going in as I can when I come to a point in the flower. And if you forget here, it's not a big deal because you're still going to be traveling here where you could go into the center, or even over here. So you have kind of a couple of opportunities to get that done. So I'm going to go ahead and do this bottom section. Okay, and we're to the end. So I think that, you know, it's a really pretty, nice, flowing, easy to do design. So I hope you guys like that and that you might give that design a try.
Okay, it's Karen again. I'm back for the more complex version. And this is kind of similar to my simpler version, just it's a little more detailed quilting and a little denser of a fill. So I'm going to start up here in that same corner, and I'm going to stitch down to here, and I'm going to do like a little leaf. And you can't see it yet. You'll see it in a minute. And then, whoops, sorry about that. I'm going to aim for that same center, but I'm going to do a perfectly straight line in here. And then I'm going to do that loop with an echo. And then I'll fill this in. I'm just using pebbles. You could fill it in with whatever works for you. I just love pebbles, but they do take a little longer. And then when I get to here, I'm going to go up to that, where that petal comes in, and come back down. If you need to use a ruler, that's fine. I would use a ruler because I can't hit the same line twice in a row unless there's a ruler next to it. So again, a big loop and a smaller loop, and fill that with whatever you want to. If you just want to do squiggles, you can do squiggles. You can do whatever fill you want in there, whatever's your go-to fill. Back around, and we're going to do this all the way around the flower applique. Just filling that in. Again, pebbles take longer to draw than they do to stitch. Big loop, little loop, background fill. Straight out and back, big loop, little loop, background fill. And then straight back out again. Now I'm going to ditch all the way around that flower applique. And of course, in real life, I'd be hitting that ditch much better than I am right now. And then I'll come up here and do the outside of my leaf. And now I'm going to echo that one more time, just to add a little bit of detail and dimension to it. And get here, come back up here. So I've echoed the flower and the leaf that we stitched. So now I could start my background fill over to here until I get to here, but I'm not going to. If you choose to do that, you can. I'm going to actually tie off and do that, repeat the same exact thing to this next, the same exact design to this next flower. So I'll tie on here, come down, do my little leaf, fill this one in, again using whatever fill you want out to that point and back, big loop, little loop, background fill. Out and back, big loop, little loop. I mean, it's more quilting, but it's not actually much more difficult than the first one. There's just more stitching. Out and back. And that's what, sometimes we say it's more complex design, but it's really a very similar design. It's just more like that, more detailed quilting, more repetitions, more echoes. That's what makes it more complex. Not necessarily that it's a more difficult design, just longer to stitch. And again, like between my first design and this design, there are multiple levels of different quilting in there. The first one was super simple. This one's more complex. You can land somewhere in the middle and still have an awesome design. Okay, back out, up the leaf, back down. I forgot to do my ditching, so we'll do that now. And that happens in real life too. Thankfully, it happened right there, and I can just stitch right from that inner point. And only you and I will know. Over here, back out. So now I'll tie off again. Now I'll come back over here and do my background fill. And for my background fill, I'm just doing all little swirlies. Well, I shouldn't say little. Varying sizes of swirls, curls, whichever you prefer to call them. We'll just fill in that background. Very similar to this, the same path we took on the first design. Filling all that in. All right. When I get up here, I'm just going to stitch through right along that edge of the quilt to cut through. I probably should have made my pen a little bit thinner, but you get the idea, and you can see the path. It's just a lot of ink on this screen. Gives you the idea of contrasting thread, which I'm not that brave. If this were a white background, I'd be quilting in white thread. I might get really super adventurous and use a pale lavender, but that's about as contrast as I can get. I like tone on tone. I like the quilting to just become texture. So, but again, personal preference. I'm not brave enough to throw this kind of stitching down in dark thread. So that same thing across the bottom, we want to keep it kind of wiggly. We don't want to go straight across. You know, trick that eye into thinking it's all stitched at the same time. So again, here's that that complex figure. It's not really more complex, it's just a lot more stitching. I don't want that complex word to scare anyone. It doesn't necessarily mean it's more difficult. You can tell I've been drawing these swirlies. They're getting kind of wonky. Again, stitching is much better than drawing. And we'll go back up to where we started. And then tie off, and then we'll move down for this next roll. Again, we're starting in this corner, coming down with that leaf, the double loops, and the fill. So I will keep drawing this, and I'll bring you back when I'm finished. Well, I'm coming back early because you see what I did when I stitched the first one? I made that go into what I need for my leaf. So, I'm going to pretend it's not there, because if I erase it, it'll erase all of that drawing I did. So, just I made a mistake so you can learn from it. If you can't remember where your design goes, you might want to chalk something there. So again, this one went too far and this one went too far, but you can all learn from my mistake. So we're going to pretend they're not there. Come down, do our leaf. Okay, now I'll finish drawing this flower out for you. Okay, and there it is. And you can see I started out drawing my swirlies nice and close together, and by the end I was bigger. The more spaced and larger. So if this were a real quilt, I'd be really angry with myself right now, because whatever you start with, you have to keep that continuous, your density and your fill all the way through the quilt. So, and you did see my little mistake here. So again, mistakes happen to all of us. That's why I didn't stop this and restart, because I wanted you to see that, yeah, we make mistakes too. We're just big enough to share them with you. So I hope you learn from that mistake. And with leaving that area for the leaf, you might want to chalk it if you have a short attention span like I do, and you get a little ahead of yourself. That way, if it's chalked, your brain will see that line and be like, oh wait, we shouldn't be background filling right here. We're going to put something there. So just a little thing to remember. Hope that helps you.
Hi, it's Jody again. This time for my more complex flower applique design. It really isn't a whole lot more difficult in the quilting itself. It's just going to be a little more organized. So rather than, we're going to use the leaves again in the background, but this time instead of having just a free-flowing like leaves as a fill, we're going to use them in a more structured way. And you'll notice that I've used, I know it's probably hard to see, but it's just markings. So I put an X through each of these big blocks. And being that this is small, I know that I can reach like the whole top row plus probably half of the second one, if not all of it, depending, on the size. But I'm going to assume I can reach all of the top row and then half of the bottom. So let's swim. Yeah, I did. Okay. So what we're going to do this time with these X's, we're going to use these as guides. So we're going to put leaves flowing out along this seam. That seam can act as our spine, and we'll be able to stitch there to kind of travel and hide that. And we're also going to stitch them traveling around the quilt, but we're going to, because these go out, we want to make this so that it doesn't become directional. So on the centers, we're going to go from here and we're going to do them out in each direction on all four sides. It'll make more sense when I start to do it. And then the design we're going to put in the flower is, we are going to stop, we're going to stitch each flower separately, because this time I want to stitch in the ditch around the outside of them. So we're going to go ahead and fill. We're going to work, top to bottom. We're going to do as much as we can with the background, and then I'll go and do these top two flowers, and then we'll do the same thing on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is start right in the center of the quilt here, and I'm going to do the leaves. But what I want to make sure I do is take them, so these ones are going to flow out. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to stop them, and I can do both sides at once. So you can see I'm stopping them at these lines. So that's going to give it like more of a structured look. I'm just going to work my way over. And again, see those yellow lines are my marked boundaries. I have the top, and then we can travel down that seam to do the next one. And I'll just work my way across, filling in to the flower and to those boundary lines. I can travel back to the center. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the top. And see, because we went up to that boundary line, it kind of creates these little areas in here, and there'll be 4 of those. So I'll just keep going, filling in. out to that line and back down to the center. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and tie off. I'm going to go up over to this side and I'm going to do the same thing. But remember, I want these to be going in 2 different directions. So I'm going to, from this one, these ones are going to go up. And again, these are going to that boundary line. And then we'll have the top. Then I'm going to travel over here because I want these ones from the center to be going out. It's nice when you can do something that comes, and this makes it a lot easier when you go to bind too, because the leaves are coming in from the edge. And then again, I'll go off the edge of the quilt, right at the edge there. I would travel down, and these ones are going to go this direction. And again, stopping at that boundary, put a top on there. Then I can sneak down this side edge and do these ones. And a top. At this point I would tie off. I'm going to come over to my flowers and do those. So I'm going to start, wherever, it doesn't really matter where, but I'd start right here. And I'm going to first go around and stitch these in the ditch. At that point, I'm going to come in and do like a little echo, but this time putting a little curve at the top. And then I'm going to travel around one more time and put a little like spike, I guess, into each one of these, aiming for the center. And then I'm going to fill this, and I just used loops, but you could put any fill in there that you like. And then I would tie off, go over here, do the same thing. Stitch this in the ditch first. Add that curvy echo. Spike. And then the fill. So that flows nice and quick. And then tie off. So at this point, I'm going to advance the quilt until I can reach the bottom. And then I'm going to repeat what I just did. So I'm going to start at the center. Okay, so that brings us to the end of that one. And you can see now, it's a little wobbly, the lines, but it just gives it a much more structured look, I think, with them flowing in different directions, and you have the same size thing coming out from the center. So I hope you guys like that. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you have enjoyed today's designs, and be sure to join us for the next episode of Dual Process.